We know we're destroying Yemen, we just don't care. These chilling words, as reported from an intercepted conversation involving a senior Houthi commander and an Iranian advisor, reveal the brutal truth behind Yemen's collapse. Right now, as you watch this, Yemen is experiencing something that defies comprehension. A country literally eating itself alive while its radical Islamic rulers celebrate the destruction. The numbers are so catastrophic they've stopped making sense. 400,000 dead, more than 18.2 million people in need of humanitarian assistance. An entire generation of children who've never known anything but war, hunger, and death. But those statistics don't capture the real horror of what the Houthis have done. They've taken a nation that was already struggling and turned it into the single worst place on earth to be alive. Not through incompetence, not through miscalculation, through deliberate, calculated evil. Think you understand what's happening? Think again. What happens next will leave you speechless. While millions of Yemenis search through garbage for food, Houthi leaders are launching million-dollar missiles at ships in the Red Sea. While hospitals run out of basic medicine, they're importing advanced weapons from Iran. While children die from preventable diseases, they're building a pirate empire that threatens global shipping. This isn't just a humanitarian crisis. This is what happens when religious extremism meets maritime terrorism meets complete societal collapse. And if you think this is just Yemen's problem, think again, because what's happening there is about to spill over in ways that will shock the world. But to understand how Yemen became a graveyard, you need to know who the Houthis really are. Their transformation from mountain rebels into the most dangerous pirates of the 21st century is more terrifying than you think. The Houthis emerged in the 1990s as a Zaidi Shia revivalist movement in northern Yemen, founded by Hussein Badr al-Din al-Houthi. They charged President Ali Abdullah Saleh with massive corruption, accusing him of stealing the wealth of the Arab world's poorest country for his own family. Sounds reasonable, right? Fighting corruption, defending religious minorities, but here's where the story takes a dark turn that changed everything. The American invasion of Iraq in 2003 deeply radicalized the Houthi movement, like it did many other Arabs. Hussein al-Houthi didn't just oppose the war, he built an entire ideology around hatred of America and Israel, creating a movement that would eventually consume his own country. Their slogan tells you everything you need to know. God is great, death to America, death to Israel, a curse upon the Jews, victory to Islam. This wasn't just rhetoric, it was a declaration of war against the world. When Hussein al-Houthi was killed by government forces in 2004, his brother Abdul Malik took over. And if Hussein was radical, Abdul Malik was something far worse, a true believer willing to burn down his entire country for his twisted vision. On September 21, 2014, the Houthis stormed the Yemeni capital, Sana'a, causing the resignation of the government. They didn't just seize power, they seized the fate of 30 million people and condemned them to hell. This was not a popular uprising driven by widespread public support, but a forceful takeover. Their military expansion, funded by illicit means and foreign backing, solidified their grip, crushing any democratic aspirations Yemen might have once held. The initial public grievances against corruption were quickly overshadowed by a brutal authoritarian rule, maintained through fear and oppression. The very foundation of a functioning state was dismantled, brick by agonizing brick. The Houthi leadership, despite their claims of fighting for justice, systematically silenced opposition, arrested critics, and established a repressive security apparatus, ensuring that any hope for a peaceful democratic transition was extinguished under their iron fist. But what happened next should have been impossible. A landlocked militia from Yemen's mountains somehow became one of the world's most feared maritime forces. How? 2 words: Iranian weapons. Commanders from Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, IRGC, and Lebanon's Hezbollah group are on the ground in Yemen helping to direct and oversee Houthi attacks on Red Sea shipping. This isn't some ragtag group firing rusty AK-47s. This is a sophisticated terror operation with state backing. From November 2023 to March 2024, the Houthis attacked more than 60 vessels in the Red Sea. These weren't random attacks. Each strike was calculated to maximize global economic damage. The Houthis have carried out more than 250 attacks on ships since November 2023 and have sunk 2 vessels, seized another, and killed at least 4 seafarers. The most shocking part? They're proud of it. When they seized the Galaxy Leader cargo ship in November 2023, they didn't hide it, they turned it into a tourist attraction. Yemeni families now take selfies on a hijacked vessel while their countrymen starve. The Houthis employ a terrifying array of tactics in the Red Sea. They utilize bomb-laden drone boats and act as mobile underwater IEDs, conventional anti-ship cruise missiles fired from Yemen's coast, and even deploy sea mines to further cripple vital shipping lanes. These diverse methods allow them to adapt their attacks and increase the perceived threat to commercial vessels. Every day brings a new threat, a new method of attack, keeping global shipping on edge and diverting resources from vital aid efforts. The ultimate goal is not just to protest, but to fundamentally alter global trade routes and assert regional dominance, all at the expense of an already fragile global economy. The ripple effects of these attacks are felt far beyond the immediate shipping lanes, impacting supply chains and consumer prices across continents. Major shipping companies like Maersk and Hapag-Lloyd have rerouted their vessels around Africa, adding thousands of miles and weeks to voyages, disrupting schedules and driving up costs for consumers worldwide. This maritime chaos is a calculated move to hit the global economy where it hurts, demonstrating a reach far beyond Yemen's borders. But here's what makes this even more insane. Container shipping through the Red Sea fell from December 2023 to February 2024 by 90%. Before their attacks, 25,000 merchant ships passed through the Red Sea annually. The current number has dropped to around 10,000 ships annually. The Houthis didn't just attack ships, they brought global trade to its knees. Approximately 200 cargo ships transited the Bab el-Mandeb Strait in the southern Red Sea near Yemen in February 2025, and global freight prices by March 2025 were still significantly higher than pre-Gaza war levels. Every container ship forced to sail around Africa burns an extra $1 million in fuel. Every delayed shipment drives up prices worldwide. Every attack makes Yemen's own humanitarian crisis worse by disrupting aid deliveries. But that's exactly what the Houthis want. While they are playing pirate on the high seas, something even more horrifying is happening on land. 18.2 million out of Yemen's 39.4 million citizens require humanitarian assistance and civilian protection, with 4.5 million internally displaced. Over 80% of the population live below the poverty line. Among them, 6 million are expected to experience emergency conditions, teetering just one step away from famine or famine-like catastrophe. This means millions live with their lives hanging by a thread, a direct consequence of this calculated devastation, pushing the country further into an abyss of hunger and despair. But here's the truly evil part that will make your blood boil. The Houthis and the Yemeni government impose unnecessary restrictions and regulations on humanitarian organizations and aid projects, creating lengthy delays. They're not just letting people starve, they're actively preventing help from reaching them. These obstructions come in various forms, from bureaucratic hurdles and demands for taxes on aid to outright confiscation and diversion of supplies for their own fighters. Aid convoys are routinely delayed for weeks, sometimes months, at checkpoints where all perishable goods rot. The Houthis even dictate which areas receive aid and which don't, using starvation as a weapon of war to punish dissenting populations and consolidate their control. This deliberate strangulation of aid pathways ensures that the suffering of the Yemeni people continues unabated, serving the Houthi agenda by weakening any potential opposition. Yemen bears the world's highest cholera burden, with outbreaks spreading throughout populations weakened by starvation. Diseases that were eradicated decades ago are back with a vengeance. Measles, diphtheria, and dengue fever are now rampant, tearing through a population with little to no access to medical care, clean water, or proper sanitation. The collapse of the healthcare system means basic vaccinations are unavailable, leading to a tragic resurgence of preventable childhood illnesses. Hospitals that remain operational are overwhelmed, lacking basic medicines, equipment, and even staff, turning once treatable conditions into death sentences for countless Yemenis. The scarcity of fuel, a direct result of the economic blockade and Houthi actions, further cripples hospitals and water pumping stations, exacerbating the public health crisis and turning common ailments into deadly threats. If you think the humanitarian disaster is bad, wait until you hear what's happened to the economy. This is where the Houthis' true genius for destruction becomes clear. Yemen's GDP is projected to contract by 1% in 2024, following a 2% decline in 2023, exacerbating the 54% drop in real GDP per capita since 2015. The economy has been cut in half. This isn't a mere downturn, it's a structural annihilation. Industries that once supported livelihoods are shuttered. Trade has collapsed under the weight of conflict and Houthi interference. The fishing industry, once a vital source of income and food, is decimated by restricted access to coastal areas and repeated attacks on fishing boats. Agricultural output has plummeted due to displacement, lack of irrigation, and the targeting of farmlands. The national infrastructure, from roads to power grids, lies in ruins, making any attempt at economic recovery nearly impossible. Since then, the Yemeni rial has fallen from roughly 1,200 against the dollar to around 2,400 in government-run areas. The informal economy, once a lifeline for many, has been crippled by the constant instability and Houthi taxation, trapping millions in an inescapable cycle of poverty. But here's where it truly gets insane. In 2024, Yemen's government revoked the licenses of banks that did not shift their offices from Sana'a to Aden. The Houthis, meanwhile, banned the use of banknotes printed in the south. 2 currencies, 2 central banks, 1 dying country. This deliberate fragmentation of the financial system has created an economic nightmare. The collapse of the rial, now trading at over 2,000 rials per US dollar compared to 215 rials before the war, has significantly worsened living conditions for Yemenis. Do the math. That's a 90% loss in value. Everything you own, everything you've saved, suddenly worth 1/10 of what it was. The deliberate currency split, rather than being a technical issue, is a strategic move by the Houthis to assert financial control over the northern areas they govern, further isolating their population from the internationally recognized government and aid flows. This economic warfare is a brutal tool, effectively starving out any remaining pockets of resistance and ensuring total domination. Today, most families allocate more than 60% of their income just to secure basic food supplies. And that's if they have any income at all, because here's the kicker. They have deprived more than 1 million Yemeni employees of their salaries for the 9th consecutive year. 9 years. 9 years without pay. Teachers, doctors, engineers, the entire educated class reduced to begging or fleeing. Public services have crumbled as a result, leading to a breakdown in governance and further descent into chaos. The deliberate withholding of salaries is a calculated move to break the population's spirit and make them dependent on the Houthi regime for survival, ensuring absolute obedience through absolute destitution. This systematic impoverishment has shattered the professional class, leading to a massive brain drain as anyone with the means and opportunity flees the country, leaving behind a vacuum of expertise and hope. And where does all the money go? You're about to find out, and it leads straight to Tehran. None of this would be possible without Iran. The Islamic Republic didn't just arm the Houthis, they created a monster that's now devouring an entire nation. Iran has provided advanced drones, anti-ship cruise missiles, precision strike ballistic missiles, and medium-range missiles to the Houthis. U.S. intelligence confirms that a group of Houthi fighters were in Iran last month and were trained in an Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, base in central Iran to get familiar with the new technology and the use of missiles. This isn't aid, it's a full military partnership. The Quds Force and Lebanese Hezbollah have improved Houthi capabilities at a relatively low cost, especially compared to Saudi expenditures on air defense to protect its territory. This asymmetric warfare strategy allows Iran to project power and destabilize rivals without direct military confrontation, effectively using Yemen as a chessboard for its regional ambitions. The training provided by IRGC and Hezbollah is not just about operating weapons. It's about building a disciplined, ideologically aligned fighting force capable of executing complex attacks and expanding Iran's sphere of influence across the Arabian Peninsula. Consider the cynical calculation here. Iran spends a few million on missiles and training. The Houthis use them to attack global shipping. The world economy loses billions. Yemen starves. And Iran laughs all the way to achieving regional dominance. The Houthis unveiled the Palestine II missile in June 2024, which closely resembled the Iranian Fateh 1 and Khyber Sheikhan missiles. They claim it's locally made, but defense analysts know better. Every missile fired at a ship, every drone launched at Saudi Arabia, every mine laid in the Red Sea, all of it traces back to Tehran. The Houthis' claims of indigenous arms production are a smokescreen designed to mask the true extent of Iranian involvement and evade international accountability. But here's the most terrifying part. Iran isn't doing this out of love for the Houthis. They're using Yemen as a laboratory for regional destruction, testing weapons and tactics they'll use elsewhere. This includes developing new long-range drone capabilities and improving missile guidance systems in a live combat environment. Yemen's humanitarian catastrophe, the crippled economy, the starving population, all are acceptable collateral damage in Iran's grand strategic game. The Houthis? They're just expendable foot soldiers in Iran's war against the world, and they're taking Yemen down with them. This cynical exploitation of a desperate populace for geopolitical gain is a hallmark of Iran's regional strategy, transforming Yemen into a sacrificial pawn. Which brings us to the question nobody wants to ask. What happens next? What future awaits a country that's already dead? The short answer will chill you to the bone. In 2025, regional insecurity, escalating hostilities, economic strife, and impacts of climate change threaten to further worsen the already dire humanitarian situation. An estimated 19.5 million will need assistance, marking an increase from 2024, 18.2 million. The crisis isn't getting better, it's accelerating. This isn't a projection, it's a grim certainty based on current trends and the escalating conflict, ensuring that the suffering will only deepen in the coming year. The combined pressures of war, economic collapse, and a changing climate create a perfect store of misery with no end in sight. What about international aid? More than 21.6 million people, more than half of the population, need humanitarian assistance and protection, yet donors have so far committed only a third of what is needed. The world is suffering from Yemen fatigue. 10 years of war, 10 years of appeals, 10 years of the same horrific images. Donor countries are moving on to other crises, while Yemen slowly bleeds out. This indifference is a death sentence for a nation that desperately needs a lifeline. The lack of sustained international pressure and funding has allowed the Houthis to consolidate power and continue their destructive agenda, leaving millions to their fate. The global community's attention span has proven to be tragically short, moving from one crisis to the next, leaving Yemen to drown in its own despair and making any meaningful intervention increasingly difficult. The sheer scale of the needs, coupled with the Houthis' deliberate obstruction, has created an almost insurmountable challenge for humanitarian organizations. But here's the truly bitter irony. Even if the war ended tomorrow, which it won't, Yemen couldn't recover. The damage is too deep, the destruction too complete. The educated class has fled, the infrastructure is rubble, the economy is ash. The social fabric that holds societies together has been torn to shreds. An entire generation has known nothing but war, taught nothing but hate. These radical ideologies are the things that motivate action and motivate violence, Al-Saif stresses. Policymakers are treating symptoms, they're not treating the origins of the issue. The Houthis haven't just destroyed Yemen's present, they've murdered its future. They're not done yet. The rebuilding effort would require a monumental multi-generational commitment that, given the current international apathy, seems utterly impossible. The country's capacity for self-governance and economic revival has been systematically dismantled. The Houthis announced in May 2025 that they would attack any Israeli ship that sails in the vicinity of Yemen, including the Red Sea, the Gulf of Aden, and Bab el-Mandeb Strait. As long as they have missiles, as long as Iran keeps the weapons flowing, as long as the world's attention is elsewhere, the Houthis will keep attacking, keep destroying, keep turning Yemen into a wasteland. Because that's what happens when you let religious extremists hijack a country. They don't build, they only know how to destroy. And in Yemen, they've perfected the art of destruction. The stated goal of attacking Israeli ships is a convenient pretext to continue their broader campaign of destabilization and exert pressure on global powers, ensuring their relevance on the world stage even as their own country collapses. This continuous aggression serves their ideological agenda while providing a consistent flow of resources from their benefactors. Yemen is a mirror reflecting the darkest possibilities of our world. It shows what happens when extremism meets state collapse, when regional powers play games with millions of lives, when the international community looks away. The Houthis promised to fight corruption. Instead, they became the ultimate corruption, a cancer that consumed an entire nation. They promised resistance against foreign powers. Instead, they sold their country to Iran for missiles and drones. They promised dignity for Yemen's Shia Muslims. Instead, they brought death to everyone. We know we're destroying Yemen, we just don't care. Those words should haunt us all, because they're not just about Yemen, they're a warning about what radical groups will do when given the chance: destroy everything and everyone in a pursuit of their twisted ideology. Yemen didn't have to die, but the Houthis made sure it did. And as long as they control the north, as long as they can launch missiles at ships, as long as Iran keeps them armed, Yemen will remain what it has become: a nation-sized graveyard, a warning to the world, a place where hope itself has died. The bitter truth? The Houthis have achieved something even their worst enemies couldn't. They've made Yemen disappear, not from the map, but from the world's consciousness. Just another failed state, another humanitarian crisis, another problem too big to solve. And that's exactly how they want it, because in the darkness, in the chaos, in the starvation and death, the Houthis thrive. They've built their empire on Yemen's corpse, and they're not giving it up. What do you think? Can Yemen be saved, or has it already passed the point of no return? Is the international community doing enough, or have we already abandoned 30 million people to their fate? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to Fall of Nations for more unfiltered analysis of the world's forgotten crises. Now go watch Islam is about to be erased from the map, or Iran is reaping what it sowed, collapse imminent, to see how another nation is sliding toward the same fate and why nobody's stopping it.